Alright, so we're jumping in quite a bit ahead from where we left off in the last video. As you can see, everything is mostly unwrapped now. And the reason for this is I looked over the previous videos and I thought, is it interesting enough to show these? Will I be able to talk full these? I think it's about 2-3 hours in real time that we skipped. That would turn out to be about an extra hour, hour and a half of video. Is it worth it that I talk over these this work? And I sort of decided, no, it's not worth it. It's just the same as the previous videos, and I think I've really tried to show you the more interesting parts, such as the exhausts, the general workflow, normalizing stuff and everything. And so I decided to just go ahead and skip the unwrapping of the engine. If you think this is a problem, then just leave a comment and tell me, Lawrence, I really appreciate it if you just show everything you do, even if you sit around and tell stupid jokes all the time because there's nothing else to say. So anyway, what you're seeing now here is I have selected everything. As you can see, I have all objects of the car selected in my view, and what I'm doing is I've applied an extra unwrap modifier on top of them. It's a really cool feature of 3D Studio Max. It's only been in there since I think 3D Studio Max 2008. I started off, well, I didn't start with 9, but I really started getting into things when I used 3D Studio Max 9, and they didn't have that back then. You can select multiple objects and apply an unwrap modifier onto multiple objects, and that means you can unwrap these objects together, but they are still separate objects and you can still edit them separately. So that's what I've done here. Selected everything, applied an unwrap modifier, and that way I can move everything into its correct relative position compared to each other, but still keep them as separate objects, so it's easier for baking and everything. And all I'm doing now is creating the giant puzzle that is the packing. The big part in the center, the really complex stuff, that's the engine. I just unwrapped the engine and kept everything really compact because I like to work with these blocks that I just click into place. It's sort of like working with Legos or creating a puzzle, just a really hard puzzle. So anyway, you just see me moving the parts here, putting stuff into position. At the bottom, that's the frame. You can see the exhausts at the bottom left, engines in the center. At the right, we have some stuff like the radiator. Top right is the grille from the front of the car. That's the fuel tank I have selected here. You can see the headlight. And also one thing I'm doing here is extremely important to make your workflow doing this easier. And that is to turn on sync to element. That way you can just select entire islands in one click. Because logically at this stage you don't want to be working with separate polygons anymore. You just want to move all the correctly unwrapped parts into their correct position towards each other. So if you learn anything from this video about workflow for UVing, if you're new to it, it's just to split it up into parts and unwrap each part decently separately, and then once it comes together all you have to do is do some puzzling. So what I'm doing here is I'm just stacking everything, trying to approach a perfect perfect square shape as well as I can. It's really hard to do it on site. Also very important, I'm not scaling things here. I'm still working in the unnormalized scale. Still working with everything really big and in real world size. And once I have everything stacked as a square, then I'm going to start resizing and moving it into position. But naturally, the more separate objects you have, like here I really have a ton. I think, yeah, it says 51 objects selected, and there we go, I have a crash. That's not the first one I have during unwrapping. I think I have about 5. I skipped a few of them, but there's one here. Anyway, start up max again. I have a little bit of stuff to redo. Anyway, as I was saying, the more parts you have, I have 51 now, but that doesn't mean I have 51 UV islands. I say I have about 200, 300 UV islands, something like that. I think it's 200. And all those parts have to be stacked separately. So one thing you should also note is right now I have selected all parts, and I'm not going to put everything on one texture. I've mentioned it before with the glass, the windows. I won't be putting that on a single texture sheet. I'm actually going to have 4 textures. I'll explain you a little bit about that now, since, well, we've gotten to the unwrapping at the stage where you decide about these things. I'll have 4 textures. One texture is the one I'm working on right now, well, one unwrapping, and that is all the detail stuff, the chassis, the engine, the suspension, all the little chrome bits, the fuel tank, etc. Everything you see here, the exhaust. Then my second most important texture will be the car body. The car body will include, well, just that red part you see there. Solely that part, nothing else. As well as the leather around the car's shifter, because it's the same material as the seats. So I think it makes sense to keep those together. Yeah, I decided to move those separately because they're on a separate texture. And then a third texture I will have is the wheels texture. If I make a car, I pretty much always do it like this. Wheels separate. Reasons for this is I used to create cars for games in my spare time, just some modding. And games like, for example, Flat Out, some people might know it, they have all their wheels are unwrapped to separate textures, because that way you can share wheel textures between cars and you don't have to load a big texture sheet with lots of engine details for a car that might not even be in the game. So that's the reason I do it like that. Also because I just think it's easier to do it like that. Split it up in some logical parts. Makes sense to split the wheels from the body. And then my fourth texture, I mentioned this one before, my fourth texture will be just the glass. That's going to be the windshield of the car and the lenses for the headlights. And a big reason I'm also splitting up between is because I want the body of the car, the carriage, I want that to have really shiny reflections, while the engine and so doesn't need such shiny reflections. Glass needs to be transparent, and it also needs to have very shiny reflections. Once again, the wheels and the body don't need that as much, so it's just easier to do it like that. And you can just see me puzzling here. Here I'm doing what I mentioned before. I'm splitting them apart because of the smoothing groups. Also makes more sense for my stacking. Accidentally closed the window. Also, it makes more sense to move these apart. You see, well, this is a lot of puzzling. You move one part, trying to fit all these crazy shapes together. There we go, that looks about right. Move that over a little bit. And then I can fit these in between. The rotate buttons from the UV Tools 1.6, really useful here. The 90-degree rotation stuff, really use that a lot. So we have some interior stuff here. Need to get rid of that somewhere. There at the top, that should be okay. The steering wheel, going to dump that somewhere over there. And that stuff, I'm not sure. It's going to go to a separate texture, but this might not go there. The shift stick, where you, I don't know how you call that part, the part you put your hand on. Okay. So I still have these, some parts to get rid of. These go together with the interior there. Let's see, what is this? Those are those the long stretch parts, and those long stretchy parts are the lines that connect the windshield to the front lights, and also the this little steering rod. So I'm going to try and fit those in there. They're not really important parts, so I can get away with some scaling there. I'll see about it. Move those. That can fit nicely there. That's better. Then we can move this one down. And would this fit in between? I have my doubts about it. I don't think that's going to work. Also, you see me rotate, mirror, and flip this stuff around a lot, which is fine if you're puzzling. I mean, you shouldn't do this on parts that will have text on them, but most parts of my car will not have text on them. I think the only area where there is text is the valve covers. And we need to do a little bit more puzzling here. Yeah, that works out alright. And this one can fit in there. Okay. I just rescaled that part because it's completely unimportant. It's this small attachment piece between the fuel tank and the body of the car, and I'm probably going to texture that a solid color, so absolutely no need to put more effort in the unwraps there. We'll stack those over there. Since those parts are so unimportant, I'm just going to scale them. That way you can fit them in there. And this one fits there now. Okay, as you can see, I'm approaching a pretty nice square. I think I'm done with this. I've stacked all the parts I want into one texture together to form a shape that approaches a square as much as possible. And now I'm going to actually fit it into my 0 to 1 range. So this is the only moment that I'm actually scaling more than an unimportant part. When I get to this stage, that means my unwrap is, well, the layout, the unwraps of the parts are pretty much completely done, and I'm satisfied with them, and I think that I won't have to change them a lot. So I've done that. That means I collapse the unwrap, just because I want to make sure that I don't lose it. Told you enough about that. And now I'm going to go over to doing the packing for a different mesh. And I'm just attaching all these parts together to form one object for a wheel. I'm going to do the wheels now. I don't want to have all those parts separately anymore. It's just not necessary. So all my wheels are a single object. I'm just looking at it if I'm not forgetting anything. Yeah, there we go. 48 objects. Lost a few because of the attaching. Sometimes I just can't stop looking at my models and rotate it around. I get lost in that a little bit. Okay, so I have these two parts. One of them still has the unwrap modifier on them. I've collapsed that. I just mirror it to create another instance. And I had another unwrap modifier on top. And now I'm looking for my wheels. And the problem is I had selected something in there, I think. Oh, there we go. I think I might not have zoomed out enough. So here we go, my wheels. One thing I haven't done before, you saw me do that on the other wheel, is I have not stacked those parts of the front wheel on top of each other. I'm still going to have to do that. just counted them, and I have to do it every 4. So I'm selecting every 4 polygons of that part, hit Control D to detach them, and then just shift and move them on top of each other so that I only have to align on one axis. The easiest way to get this done. And I hope you can immediately see that if I had to UV map these long stretches, that would have been a lot harder than these simple rectangular blocks. All I have to make sure is that it tiles a little bit, but hey, that shouldn't be too much of a challenge when unwrapping. So we have that part that goes there. As you can see, it's not even a square yet. Might even be hard to fit it in there. I might have to do some scaling or some more moving. Yeah, I'm gonna make it this big. Move that one up a little bit, and then just do some extra puzzling to fit more, get more in there. That's something I see beginners do also. They have their stacking done, they fit it in there. Oh, it doesn't work out. I have 30% empty space, but I'm not even gonna bother by upscaling things more. Don't do that. I can make this even bigger. Let's see, and I just tried to get my biggest pieces in there. I must have gained, I think, about 25-30% in scaling, maybe even more, maybe 50%, by just trying to reorganize things in there. So don't be afraid to just change that around. I don't think I'll be able to do better because my 2 largest parts dictate the best packing I can have in there. So wheels done, collapsed, and we still have the body left to do. This one shouldn't be too hard. It's not that many parts. The mammoth task was the chassis and the engine, and so I will have to think a little bit about arranging these logically towards each other, because I will be putting some graphics on them. Also, I just decided that I don't want to have mirrored mapping on the center there, because if I put some dirt on it, you're really going to see that. You're going to get these obviously an ugly mirrored effect. So I think it's worth it to just unwrap the center parts uniquely. I might not, probably won't do it for the seats in the center, but for the exterior parts over there, I think it's worth it. I'm just seeing if there's a problem here because of my welding. Yeah, move those down. And I'm gonna do 2 unique sides like this also, because if I put some graphics on the side or I do unique unwrapping, it's gonna look better like that. Also, I will have enough texture space with this one, so I don't need to be too stingy with texture space. My seats, weld those together. My dashboard, I also want that unique. I definitely want my dashboard not to be mirrored, because the gauges that will be on it, I can't get ambient occlusion right if it's an asymmetrical model and I have a symmetrical unwrapping. Just not possible. And same deal here. That will be the front, and since you have the steering column going through the right side, I cannot unwrap these in a symmetrical way. There we go, that looks okay. I'm not stitching those because too many separate parts, don't feel like it. And that one fits in there. Still have that interior part to straighten out. That's the bottom of my interior. I'm just going to have that one mirrored. And we can fit this one in there, the seats. That one should fit over there. And I'm thinking if I will detach this, and I think I will because it's easier. There we go. Apparently that part of Unwrap Tools doesn't work very well if you work with a shared unwrap modifier. Collapse it again, attach that part. Okay, so this will make things easier. Place this one over there. Just a little bit of reorganizing and I can get a lot more out of my space. Just small things, but they make a difference. Let's see where I can fit that shifter leather cover in. Somewhere over there. Whatever, I'll see about it. First fit it in there. If you have one part left, it might be best just to see how well your unwrap fits into a square. So I align one corner, scale it up, and it turns out I can improve this quite a bit. Can move this one to the bottom, that one sideways. Scale that up a little bit like that. That's better. I can fit that one in over there. And this is starting to look, that's a more logical place to put it. It's just easier to texture. I won't have to do some masking to fit it in between there. UV space isn't optimized, but it is optimized for ease of texturing because I'm going to put graphics on this. And I should mention again, if you're texturing a car body like this, you really need to think about keeping things logical. You might want to have vinyls running across the entire car. If you do crazy rotated organic style unwrapping, then it's not going to work. You have to do it this way to get the most out of your UVs. So there we go. I've packed pretty much everything. I haven't done the glass yet, but I won't have to do any baking on that, so I'm just postponing that until I get to texturing. Creating some new layers to make the baking easy. I always have HP and LP layers to make my life easier texturing things. I can just hide, unhide, select stuff, and I'm just checking if the layers are working now. Yeah, these I'm going to put on a separate layer also. Glass. And it's looking like all my layers are organized correctly. I still have this unwrap left. I can collapse this. Collapse 2. There we go. Everything collapsed. Okay, so I hope you learned something from this unwrapping video. Once again, if you really didn't like me skipping some parts of the unwrapping, my apologies. Let me know. I don't know if I'll be able to get back if I can get the videos back, but you should have learned from this.